I was just telling somebody that I'm an atheist, and this other guy walks in and goes, you don't got to rub it in everyone's face all the time. And it's like, dude, you guys talk about God and your higher power.
Hey, Tyler.
Sorry.
So we actually, it turns out, had a streaming issue, and it turns out none of this went out on the air. Would you mind if we reintroduce the show real quick? Because we're now live on the air. Let us reintroduce the show real quick and bring you back in to talk about this, since we didn't get too deep anyway. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that would be totally fine.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm gonna just throw you back in the queue here for a second, and we're gonna redo that, because I don't know how much stuff didn't go out. So I'm gonna figure out what we need to cover, and we'll bring you back in first thing here in just a moment, because this is a really good topic that I definitely want to make sure we talk about. So thank you for the understanding. Yeah, I'm just gonna throw you back in the queue, and we'll have you back here in a sec. So I don't know how much didn't go out. I know something did. And apparently YouTube just at some point decided, fuck it, dump the stream. Because I think the intro did go out, because I don't start the show until I see in YouTube's preview screen our little thing that looks like this. I wait to start the show until that's on this thing. So I have no idea what you all have seen. And I'm waiting for the chat to tell us, did we have the intro? When did things cut out? This is a problem that has literally never happened before, where YouTube just goes like, you know what? You probably don't even really want to stream, do you? Like, fuck you guys. The intro did not go out. Okay. Nothing went out. We were debating Thor and Wavelength. So at some point, I think everybody saw this screen, and then nothing else happened. Did the music play? Nothing. Okay. The intro did not go out. Something done goofed. I'm the one producing. Right. So if it is user error, I'm the user. Have never made that mistake before though. So I'm going to blame YouTube, because it's easy to do. They're not here to defend themselves. Here's a few seconds of the intro. Why do this though? We'll leave the music going.
That's sexy.
Tonight on the Sunday Show, student Dr. Ben and Jimmy Snow have conversations about God and spirituality and maybe some medical shit, because medical professional. Oh, it's getting louder. Now it's hard to talk over. I don't know. Feels like sort of gratuitous at this point.
I didn't break it, I promise. It's not me.
No, it definitely wasn't you. You've got an iPad with the call screening up. Couldn't have been you. Let me once again then reintroduce the show. This is the Sunday Show. We usually take questions about God, theism, spirituality. If you want to talk about issues affecting atheists, theists, we would love to talk to believers who want to tell us why they believe. We do have in the house today the unique student doctor with us. Yeah. Student Dr. Ben, do you want to give the brief version of the intro you already did when I needed you to vamp earlier?
Yeah, so I'm student Dr. Ben. I'm a fourth-year medical student in the United States, currently interviewing for residency in family medicine. And I have a YouTube channel, Student Dr. Ben, where I talk about all things science related to social issues. I have talks about abortion, talks about epidemiology, stats, all that kind of stuff. I also have a live show called Medical Myths on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, where I debunk bad medicine on the internet.
Hell yeah. That's all awesome. All right. We technically even started a call, just so you all know. And I think you know, because I hit the button to fix things, and you probably all saw that where we were just in the middle, and I was like, caller, let me interrupt you. And I'll tell you what, there are plenty of people who could have called in, and I would have just started the call and let people figure it out. I want to do this one from the beginning, because I do think that this is an important topic to broach. As a recovered addict myself, we have a medical professional who has been on the clinician side of addiction recovery. I've been on the patient side of addiction recovery, also crisis recovery, not that long ago, even though that's not a story I'm just gonna blurt out. That's a lot of personal life shit to just drop on everybody all at once. So anyway, we have Tyler in Illinois, pronouns he, him, is an atheist, wanting to talk a little bit about that for non-believers, those recovery systems, things like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, which often have religiosity baked into their programs, which is very, very frustrating for either people who are non-believers or whose belief system isn't simpatico. Is that what that word is used for? Compatible. I don't know. We're just going to go with that. Tyler, go ahead and let's broach this topic. Go ahead and let me know what you want to, where you want to go with this.
All right, cool. So, well, I've got a quick question related to this. You might know. I'm not sure if I'm right or not. Is the prayer Our Father Catholic prayer only?
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name,
Yes.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth even as it is. Here's the weird thing. It's not Mormon, but I know it. That's how permeated into culture it is. I think that is a Catholic prayer. You might have offshoots of Catholicism that directly took from it, just like there are every now and then little like non-denominational religions that still worship the saints and stuff, like they have a relationship with. But I do think that is a specifically Catholic thing. It was weird that when you said it, that's the first time I've ever recognized I could recite it, a good portion of it. Give us now our daily bread, deliver us from. Okay, anyway, go ahead and I think the answer is yes. That was me talking for 3 minutes to just say yes, and I'm sorry.
It's all good, man. That's what we love about you.
Thanks.
All right, so it's safe to assume that prayer originated with the Catholic Church, then?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. With that being said, when you're in AA or NA or any of the other 12 steps, they call it the Lord's Prayer, and they use that prayer.
Yeah.
So, like, that's just one example, but they steal a lot of things from other religions and pack it into their AA when they claim to be secular.
Yeah, there are quite a few people in the live chat saying that it's also generic. I still suspect it originates because I think the longer version actually may even have some references to the saints, but I could be wrong. So there's a lot of people saying they're Protestant and they said a version of that prayer. So we'll just go with it's definitely Christian. And I know Catholics who say it while holding their rosaries and such.
Right. Okay. All right. So that works either way then, yeah. So, yeah, what all I was pointing out is that they steal things from religions. I wrote down in my notebook like 2 years ago all the parallels I saw between AA and cults. And, like, the list was extremely long. Like, and they get so mad if you even mention the fact that you think it might be a cult. But I really do believe that. And then just like even in rehab, like it's all about your higher power there, and it's like they make you go to groups where it's basically where all they do is talk about religious stuff and use religious. Like one time I had a counselor say, "We all believe in miracles here, right?
Right.
Raise your hand," and every but me rose my hand. So it's like.
It's leading, but it's also isolating for the people who don't believe. I want to, before we jump past the cult point, because I think this is important to address, we have to basically come to the point of where we look at, right now, it's easy to look at everything and think that is or isn't a cult. Now, I happen to be closer to your position than probably their position, but we do need to address that there are some things which don't get to, we can't just make everything a cult. So if I was looking for why I don't think some of these programs are technically cults, one of the things is going to be that lifetime commitment. However, there are versions that certainly are. I do not like the philosophies of once an addict, always an addict, because that starts to feel very cult-like. And I feel like I've broken free of the specific addiction I went to treatment for. even if I then have issues at times with other things in my life that you could call perhaps addiction. I hate the way they try to sort of be very myopic, be very, they like to take everything down as much as they can to like reductionist. They're very reductionist in those concepts, and I don't like that. So there are ways in which I think we can say like, okay, I get it. Here's something a cult does, and here's something this does. There are also certain organizations that we accept that from, again, as long as there isn't a sort of lifetime commitment. In fact, and you are still in the military, right?
Yes.
The military ran super cult-like, but we accept it as sort of different from a cult because presumably you'll be able to leave.
Oh yeah, I can leave.
And people will be a dick to you though about like, if you drop your patriotism fetish, that's supposed to be mandatory, but hopefully you already don't have, because that's always grossed me out about a lot of ex-military people that are just like, and this is the greatest country on the planet. And not really. But anyway, it is good to separate certain things out, and where it's like, oh, this organization is not doing enough because it's resorting to cult-like tactics, versus saying like Alcoholics Anonymous is a cult. That said, I am very off-put by a lot of for my own stuff and programs that I was in. There's a lot of this, like, you have to pick a higher power, but they're like, but if you don't believe, you could make a rock your higher power. Just say like, that rock is my higher power, which one is already such a condescending thing to do. Because if I need to pick a higher power, I'm going to pick a concept like physics, not a fucking rock. Let's not be dicks at, but then
when I was required to go, I told everyone my higher power was the ghost of Christopher Hitchens.
There you go. Yeah. Well, something that doesn't exist and is fictional, and can kind of match their stuff. But yeah, and they will treat you like, oh, okay, well, it's just as equal if you pick this arbitrary thing as your higher power. Anyway, we all believe in miracles, right? Like your example was, Tyler. That shit's so frustrating. But anyway, continue on now that we've gotten past the cult specification that I once again took way too long to explain.
No, I should have chosen my words better going into this, because I know how we've got to make sure we're on the same page and all that.
Sure.
So anyway, and then just even being in rehab, like I gave you one example of the miracles that we had talked about. But I had said once, I was telling a client in the rehab that I'm an atheist. And this other dude walks up and he goes, "Why?" He's like, "We don't flaunt our religious beliefs in front of you. Why you got to flaunt it in front of us?" And like my head almost just exploded. I was like, "What are you talking about? I hear God is great, or God is always great. Like at the end of every meeting we go to."
Yeah.
And you guys talking about God the whole time, even the counselors, like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. No, it's not even just not just even in what you're talking about, addiction programs. The religious people who are extremely religious somehow have convinced themselves. I don't know if you've seen this or not. Have you seen like religious people that are like, it's fine if you're an atheist. And yes, I'm doing this accent on purpose. It's fine if you're an atheist, but just like keep that to yourself. It's not like I'm rubbing my Christianity in your face and you're like, I just moved from a place, Denver, where somebody for the last several decades, I think it is now, has used their private property to force everyone at night who wants to watch the sunset on the mountains look at their stupid fucking giant lit up cross. Yeah. I can't escape Christianity in this fucking, what are you talking about? And not to mention, of course I want to engage with you on your religious beliefs, because you keep voting on your fucking religious beliefs. Christians do nothing but make their Christianity my goddamn problem. Why the fuck else do you think I'm talking about it all the time? Why am I so worked up already? I'm like fucking, I'm getting angry.
Because it's a real problem.
No, dude, I totally get it. Like, my life, I get worked up about stuff like this, and like, I'll start getting into like random debates with just random people, or like lecture my wife about it. I'm sure she's so over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I get really frustrated about this too. Like they're ruining people's lives. you know, they're making an attempt to basically hold all powers or positions of power inside the United States.
Yeah.
So we will have to be at, you know, live at their whim, and it's fucking scary. And something I didn't mention is I also have, we don't have to get into this or whatever, but I also suffer from gender dysphoria, and like, it's one of the main reasons why I haven't started hormones, was because I'm so deathly afraid of these fucking psychos.
Yeah, you
know what I mean?
You're pre-rejected by society. You know, I'm old enough to remember when it was just gay people, not just, but gay people went through that too. But there was a rapid acceptance when people started realizing they knew queer people in their life. And if you don't mind, Ben, as the cis person, I'd like to take the trans issue here. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. But I get what you're saying, because you're pre-rejected. I'm going to let Ben take that in a second. Before we hit the trans issue a little bit, I do want to tell you something that's going to make your life more peaceful and happier and better, because when I learned how to do it, my life got better with my family. Don't lecture family members ever again. Only ask questions. And only when they bring it to you. So instead, when somebody says something that's against it and you're like, oh, but this and this and this, even if you want to make a direct point, don't make it. Ask it as a question. Start it with, okay, but
like street epistemology type deal?
Yeah, kind of. It's also just sort of, I would say street epistemology can make the questions better. I'm not saying actually go into a mindset of a specific way you're going to discuss it. I'm saying people in your life and in your family already know probably everything, not necessarily every word you're going to say, but how you're going to deliver it. And they're already ready to dismiss what they want to dismiss and to accept what they want to accept on the basis of knowing you. So this has been true of partners I've had in the past, parents I've had in the past. I've only had one set of parents in the past. You know, I wouldn't mind switching them out though if anybody's applying to be my new parents.
My wife is also an atheist, so
yeah,
that works. We actually went to the ACA on our honeymoon and hung out at the Free Thought Library and met Matt and some other cool people.
You'll be at the Free Thought Library on what date is that?
The 28th.
No. On our honeymoon, we went there.
No. Ben here is hosting from the Free Thought Library on the 28th.
Yep.
We'll be hosting Talk Haven and AXP. I am very likely going to be there in the audience unless something scares me away. Like if in Austin the monkeypox thing just takes off and we're like the center of everything going on, maybe then I wouldn't go, but because I'm already afraid of crowds. And so it's like so easy to make me more afraid of crowds. Do you want to touch on the gender dysphoria?
I want to touch on a lot of things a little bit, because especially if we're talking about approaching people with regard to this like religious influence on AA, NA, all those 12-step programs. I know there's a lot of weird rhetoric happening within the medical sphere as well on this. And because there is data that shows that you do have improvement from these 12-step programs. However, the issue is variables. Like what about this program is causing people to have more likely succeed? And it's not the religiosity of it. It's most likely the group therapy and
community.
It's community and being able to essentially function as a group therapy or as a psychotherapy aspect. So there's this flawed rhetoric coming in, and so people will take the concept as a whole, like the whole program, and say, yes, this works. This has been shown to work. So we have to keep everything in it the same, and this religiosity is what is helping people, and that's not the case at all. And like you said, if you can assign a rock to be your deity or assign whatever to be your higher power, whatever, you're already admitting that it's not that works.
Right.
You don't need the higher power, because if you can just make anything that higher power, then there's no power coming from it.
Yeah.
So it's important that and I think if you want to bring this up with other people that you're talking to, like a technique I like to use with people, especially if I don't have an argument to directly combat what they're saying, and people often don't want to listen to lectures, kind of like what Jimmy was saying. They're not going to be very receptive to that.
But they love to talk about themselves.
They do.
And that's the thing you got to weaponize.
Yeah, so asking them questions and trying to tease out what variables are contributing to the things being the way it is. So if someone says, yes, well, this program helped me, or this program has this data that shows that it works, well, then you can ask, like, okay, so what about this program is making it successful? And that's where you can go, and they can walk them through exactly what factors are there. And, like, is it possible that it's this aspect of it and not this one? If I change this aspect of the program, how would that impact the data? And they might not know, and that might cause them to have to look at this further.
Let me look up the name of the program. I think it might be called Rational Recovery. But there are also secular recovery programs out there. Unfortunately, it's few and far between.
So we're aware of that. The only problem is that we live in like the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So a lot of those meetings it's hard to even find an AA meeting out here.
Yeah. What I would do is find the local community, because it is nice to have somebody who, as a person who has had sponsors and stuff, it's nice to have somebody close by. But, you know, the internet, for all the ways in which it sucks, which is many, there's a few great things it does. And being able to have remote communities, I definitely recommend, like, check that out. In fact, one of the funny things is you could probably even check them out as local places that you've liked in the past. So for example, if you liked Austin and you liked the people there, you might be able to find out that there is an Austin AA, secular version of AA, that they all switched to remote because of COVID, or there's now a remote factor because of COVID. A lot of times now, if you look up local organizations that do anything, most of them have a remote element now that started with just locals and have branched out. Unfortunately, it is just absolutely the case that some people are going to look for resources and they simply aren't going to be able to find a practical way, because it is a super underserved thing that we need better stuff for. And rich people have awesome resources for when they have to deal with drug recovery or alcohol recovery, but the common person, unfortunately, not so much. It can be very difficult.
Well, so my wife had just reminded me that you can do AA and NA meetings via Zoom. Yeah. And I could always just find a secular Zoom on there.
Yeah.
And do that.
Yeah.
And then we're also in IOP still. We go 3 days a week and stuff like that, and that is really, like, that's a lot better than inpatient.
Sure.
So we're gonna get therapists and stuff like that within the next week or two as well.
You know, if we could get a group of secular humanists running something like that is meant to be remote and stuff, if there's a group of qualified people out there to do it, I know myself and a ton of other creators who would help Signal Boost if they wanted to create a YouTube resource where there's like live streams that are essentially each week recovery messages and that sort of thing. I wish I felt like I was qualified to do it and I had the time to take on another project, but that would be an amazing project for somebody to take on if they had it in them to do so.
Well, I would love to do something like that. Do you have like an email address I can get a hold of you through? And then when I've got everything set up, I can hit you up and let you know.
Yeah, dearmratheist@gmail.com. When I say qualified, I do mean you need to have a team of therapists, a team of professionals to do it. Because I promise you, even the most well-intentioned people, if they're just winging it and doing what they think works best, they're gonna fuck up people. Like you gotta make sure you got the professionals and all of that stuff involved in it. But yeah, if that's something you take on and that's a project that you can, what I'm describing will take a lot of people and be very hard. I just want to be very upfront about that. But if you take that on and shit, I guarantee you, that's who I am plugged into on the secular side of stuff. I can find the people to help with the signal boosting.
Okay, for sure. The email one more time, please, if you would.
And it's all over all of my social media, but dearmratheist@gmail.com. No period after Mr. Okay. But you can find it all over my social medias. I am a socialist, but you can find it all over my socialist medias.
I actually don't subscribe to any social media.
Gotcha.
Makes it, too easy to find people that have stuff that I want. You know what I mean? So
sure. Even just under if you just watch a video on my channel, Jimmy Snow, You'll find it in the description there too if you're worried about the spelling. But Dear Mr. Atheist, Mr. is MR @gmail.com. That'll get you to me.
All right, cool.
Cool. All right, Tyler.
All right, guys.
This was a great call.
I really appreciate everything.
Yeah, I appreciate a good topic and something that actually has the chance to help people out. So thank you for calling, Tyler.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
Yeah, take it easy. Do you notice that in the last couple of years, the phrase "no worries" has become much more popular?
Yeah, I do notice that.
And I like that. And it came from Australia. And I usually hate anything Australia brings, but in this scenario, it's funny to make jokes shitting on Australia because people are going to, like, what are you going to say? I'm racist? Have you seen Australians? They look all exactly like me.
A little bit.
Yeah, I look Australian enough. I look like a British person and a British person who got in trouble. And that's how Australia started. That's their whole I'm just kidding. Any Australian people watching, you're not. So fuck you. No, I'm kidding. I love Australia. I very much consider moving there every now and then. Somebody asked whether or not, okay, I'm going to address a couple things in chat. One, Dear Mr. Atheist is meant to sound like a newspaper column. And in fact, at one point kind of operated that way. And I'd like to get back to doing episodes where a person emails, Dear Mr. Atheist, how do I blank? And I respond to that in a video. So that as a show is supposed to sound a bit like a newspaper column. Also, let me just mention, we have lines open still. We've got at least a call to go to, but 720-619-2288. If you have a religious belief, I would love, that's the wrong thing. I would love to talk to you about your religious belief. If you have medical questions relative to today's things that are happening, Student Dr. Ben is here to give you good information. I'm here to make up stuff. That'll be good. So whatever you all want to talk about, give us a call. That number is 720-619-2288. Also, there is a link in the description where if you don't have the ability to call from a physical phone, you can actually call over the web. There is a web caller. You just put in your information there and it just connects using either your smartphone's microphone or your computer's microphone. So there are multiple ways to call in. Give us a ring. Another thing I saw in the live chat that somebody had asked, and I thought I would put the question to you, is, okay, is it cold in the studio?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. What is your experience of how cold this is what I want to know. Because this is, my experience isn't the same.
Okay. So have you ever been in an operating room?
Yeah. On the table.
Yeah. Okay. It's that cold. That is how cold it is.
What is the temperature they try to keep an operating room at? Do you know?
I don't know, but it supposedly to reduce infection.
Sure.
That's what they say, at least.
I am quite warm to the point that if it wouldn't change the aesthetic, I would take off the jacket. But I don't want to do that because of how much better I look with it.
But for the record, I am always cold.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm usually wearing something long sleeve. And I was like, I'm going to wear something short sleeve because it's hot outside. And then we get in here. I'm like, nope.
I am very heat sensitive to the point that actually right now, again, we're not going to do a medical consultation at this moment, but I'm right now undergoing medical consultations with my doctors about it might actually be a symptom of something, because it turns out the level to which people in Colorado were never startled by, oh, cold room, but cold area, like whatever. Mm-hmm. Here, everybody who comes in my house is like, what are you doing? I can see the temperature on the wall, by the way. The thermostat says it's 63 degrees Fahrenheit right now, which for anybody who is from another place that uses Celsius, do better. I don't know what the number is. I can't just convert that in my head. You have to times it by 9/8, I think, and then, or 8/9, and then add some number to it. Anyway, I do keep the studio cold on purpose so we don't sweat on air, and we can wear whatever is comfortable, whatever we feel comfortable in, but also to prevent sweating on air. However, I am also extremely heat sensitive. And so like I can't actually sleep if the air is any warmer than, I feel like I'm getting a little better. I would have said 65 before. Like it has to be at least 65 or lower. Mm-hmm. The apartment that I used to have that everybody would have seen, that window with the traffic going in the background, I kept that 55 year round. It was also a small apartment, so it wasn't terribly expensive to like keep that temperature, and it was well insulated, but 55 year round. Now it's a little bit higher because here you can't do that. It's way too expensive. But this is actually, I would like, especially because I have headphones on, which seals in my ears, which makes me super warm, and then a jacket and everything. I wouldn't mind if it was 55 in here right now. 17 degrees Celsius. I will also defend that metric is better for almost everything. And even metric temperature is better for like doing experiments, chemistry, all that stuff. Specifically to the experience of what a human is having because of the weather, Fahrenheit is a far superior system.
Yep.
Because 0 to 100 is mostly what you are measuring on, and that's basically the scale upon which a human can survive. You can survive basically between 0 and 100. It's harder at the 100 end, and it's harder at the 0 end, but you can live with, technically without electricity, you could figure out how to survive in those temperatures. Not necessarily comfortably at the extreme ends, but also it's like the difference between 17 degrees Celsius and like 28 degrees Celsius is like in 12 degrees, you've gone from quite cool to unbearably hot.
Yep.
Whereas Fahrenheit, you can go in 10 degree increments and you basically know the like 70 to 80 is a difference in you know what your clothing you're going to wear, you know what, and you're not having to use decimals and stuff. And so the funny thing is, the reason why Fahrenheit is better for human experience is the exact same reason metric is better for everything else, because metric is based on using tens, 100s, 1000s. Like you're using increments that are easy to track and easy to understand the difference based on tens. Fahrenheit for human experience is the exact same way. 80 degrees versus 90 degrees, you have an instant understanding of the difference based on experience. 90 to 100, instant difference. Whether or not you're going to wear a jacket or not, all this stuff, and it's not based on these tiny little decimals. So Fahrenheit is better for human experience. Metric's better for everything else. That's my... Nobody asked me to go on that rant, but I did anyway. 720-619-2288. If you want to debate me about whether or not Fahrenheit or Celsius is better, if you want to talk about monkeypox, what other topics would be good? COVID?
We can always bring up the abortion call again.
I'm down to,
argue. That's going to be going for a while, but...
Let's talk about abortion.
I will talk about it.
720-619-2288. Hit the link down in the description. Whatever you all want to debate. I don't care if for today's Sunday show, I don't care if we stick on God stuff or not. Controversial topics, whatever. My only thing is personal life shit. Leave me the fuck alone, you fucking freaks.
Except for your jacket. I think people should call in and talk about your jacket.
I'm realizing the jacket is good, but doesn't necessarily pair well with this flesh-colored shirt, which isn't always obviously a shirt.
Yeah.
It doesn't always pick up. I mean, I could do this. Do one of these deals.
I mean, you could.
This is probably better. I don't know which is better. But we do have another call on the line. We'll go ahead and take... Unless do you have any rants you wanted to go on real quick?
No. Okay. Maybe after this call I'll have a rant, but we'll see.
Let's talk to Steve in the USA. Wants to talk about loss of community as a result of deconversion.
Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?
Doing good. I think you and I may have spoken the other day when I was screening calls.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. I was going to remind you about that, in fact. Yep.
Yeah.
Just calling in like we talked about.
The question is my memory amazing, or does it tell me the notes from the past calls? Which one? Don't answer. Let's pretend it's me. Anyways, Steve, go ahead. Tell me what you're working with.
Well, before I go forward, given what you just said, and I'm someone that sometimes struggles with sarcasm, you just said, you're talking about not wanting to talk about personal life stuff. Is this an okay topic to broach, or were you just kidding around?
No. When I say personal life stuff, I'm talking like what would show up in a stupid magazine or some TMZ garbage. If somebody wants to call in and ask about just weirdly personal things, I'm talking real personal. Something that more broadly affects everyone. And what I think you're trying to ask me is whether or not I don't want to talk about something because I might end up having to shit talk my family if I do, I'm happy to do that. It's my favorite fucking thing to do. It's what some of my familial relationships are now based on, is our getting together and shit talking our parents or something. So happy to go there.
That's where I am. So I already feel better.
Excellent.
The long and the short of it is I had talked to Matt about this. I don't know if you heard the call. Matt didn't feel like he was able to contribute a lot to it. And so I just was hoping to talk to you, about the topic and Ben, of course, as well.
Yeah.
But, I've heard you talk a little bit about it before. It's something I'm really struggling with because I don't have connection with extended family. It's a big, long thing, but the biggest factor, I think, is they just live so far away. Plus, I'm coming increasingly to see that they're dealing with a lot of the same problems, that my kids have been.
Sure. Sure. So broaching the general topic of you lose a lot of people when you go against their ideological grain. So for me, it would have been first becoming a sort of black sheep Mormon, wanting to actually have rules explained to me before I just adhere to them. Then it would have become being not a member of their, not just that I wasn't a member of their religion, but that I find their religion offensive. However, would be willing to still have a relationship as long as it was built on mutual respect. Mutual respect very much became obviously not an option. And so those relationships fell away. And what's interesting is there are times where I'm tempted to go like, okay, I'd rather have a father and a mother, so I'll go and talk to my father and mother and see if something can be rebuilt there. And it's a fucked up thing because you quickly usually find out it can't. And you realize I want somebody in those positions, and it's horrible and it breaks my heart that they aren't in those positions, but it doesn't mean I necessarily want my biologicals there, especially if they don't know how to be in that position without being abusive. Now, Ben, as a trans man who is a non-believer, you've never found anything but acceptance, I assume. From everybody.
Yeah, my parents work in Christian ministry.
Yeah.
So not quite like technically a PK, but like basically a PK.
Yeah.
Is what I am. And I ended up...
For the listener who doesn't know what a PK is.
Preacher's kid.
Yeah.
So namely, my family are involved with those like college ministries. And so that's kind of... I grew up all around those. And then I had deconverted kind of throughout getting my biology degree because, strangely enough, biology makes you start to question some things that you were taught. And kind of along the way, I had learned that I was gay, and then I learned that I was trans. And my family has not been supportive, like at all. And I just came out as trans to my family this past December because I knew it was going to be rough.
Right.
And I knew basically what had happened. They think that they're still keeping community with me. Like they think they're doing the right thing. But I've set up some boundaries with them, and basically like I just don't interact with them most of the time. And
because you kind of have to, it's for your health and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think as much as I would love to have those relationships with my family, it's way more healthy for me to set up those boundaries and just not engage with them. And because I know if anyone's going to have the conversations with my family about religion, it's not going to be me. They're not going to listen to me.
Yeah.
So why do I need to put myself in that position to try to maintain that relationship when it's not going to be healthy for any of us?
Right. It hurts though. Like Steve, the thing is like, I wish I had a message of how it's going to stop hurting someday, and it might never. Now, what I think the best thing a person can do is go, I have these holes in my life. Maybe somebody else can fill them. You perverts in the audience are doing puns with what I just said, and I'm disgusted and so proud of you. So disgusting. Anyway, but there are holes in your life that you need to fill with somebody, and genuinely, like, there are people who I feel like I even have I can think of one person I have a semi-maternal relationship with, where they feel like a maternal figure. But, you know, nobody's filling the mom hole, really. No one's filling the dad hole, really. Oh my God. What am I
Yeah,
doing?
I heard
Those
it
are going
too.
to get clipped out.
Yeah.
That's going to get clipped out.
Yeah. That's that.
Kind of worsening it there, Jimmy.
I'm making it worse, yeah. But I don't have a God hole, which a lot of people talk about having a God hole. I genuinely don't feel like I do, but some people do. Some people misrecognize a God hole as a community hole. Like, I used to go to church and get this type of community, this type of validation, and they mistake it for that. And you have to figure out if that's what you're doing, and then go and try and find that new community that surrounds something. And if you can do an in-person community, the benefits from an in-person community so far just so outweigh for most people what an online community can do. But an online community can be excellent too. I'm not trying to say online communities are shit, but if that's where you have to start. But even as a person who really doesn't like being around other people, especially in mass, I'll even say it for my life. Like, for the years of COVID and the first couple years of being a YouTuber, I basically only had online community, and I still love a lot of those people, and it still meant a lot, and it's still not nothing, but it still pales in comparison to what I have found in person. Unfortunately, some of that stuff's going to hurt forever. And to me, it hurts forever. But I've recognized in my life that it is more important. This is when I talk about self-awareness all the time. And I people who aren't self-aware frustrate me so much, but also I'm jealous of them because often they're happier than I am. And so I had to decide a long time ago that it is more important for me to suffer in self-awareness than to find joy in ignorance. And I feel like that's exactly the relationship issue. It is more important to me to suffer in having holes open, because the only people right now volunteering to fill those holes are abusive. Again, I hear it, I know. But the only people willing to fill those, or that are designated for those, I would rather suffer to keep them open than harm myself for temporary happiness or what feels like happiness, or would just require me to become some level of delusional to have those relationships back. Because I could have a very peaceful and kind and uplifting type of relationship with my parents if I would just abandon all of my values and somehow convince myself that Mormonism has even a chance at being true again. And then I would feel that level of love again, and I'd feel that level of validation, and they would tell me how much they value me, and they would make me feel like a person who matters and is leaving a meaningful impact. And I would rather suffer in self-awareness and reality than go find joy in delusion. It's more important to me for that.
I hear you. That's pretty close to the place that I've been in. And it sounds like you would definitely relate to the statement, but I mean, it's I think that's, to me, maybe the single evilest part of religion. Tracy Harris did a talk about it. Mm-hmm. I've heard other people talk about it, the harmful impact of religious values. It destroys the family unit to perpetuate the religion. And I think that's hit me on such a firsthand level, because we're talking about the kind of toxic boundary violation. Like, I tell my mom, I'm generally cis. I may be questioning a little bit, but I tell my mom something like, hey, for the first time in a long time, I'm interested in a girl. I don't usually date, maybe a little bit ace as well, or at least aromantic, and it's just like, so I say, hey, for the first time I'm interested in someone, maybe she's the one, and, who knows, but, it's like, but Paul, we've already met your wife. And I'm like, say what? And I get to talking to them, and they've met a random person in one of their little church groups. And my parents and that person have both had the impression that that girl is supposed to marry me, and I'm not allowed to ask any questions about it, even something as basic as like, hey, what's this person's name? Can I pray about it? And it's so toxic and controlling and manipulative. Yeah. And so, like you said, it's just, it's like, if you're going to do that, that's not family. That's abuse.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's not family. That's abuse could literally be like the theme of the last 10,000 years at least. It's
that
so
actually
bad.
is something that as I was coming out as trans to myself, I was in a relationship with a woman, a romantic relationship, and that relationship ended up ending because I was at a place with myself, especially going through my own kind of period of self-awareness, thinking about who I am and what I want with my life, like wanting to be honest with myself. I was at a place where I wanted to be unapologetically who I was, and she was still in a place where her family's approval meant more to her than honesty with herself.
Right.
And so it was a matter of
what would my family think?
Yeah, her family didn't want her to be gay, and basically said, "Hey, you're gonna break up with this person, or we're going to kick you out of the family." And I over and over again tried to tell her, like, is this really love from your family when they're willing to kick you to the curb because you didn't follow their expectation? And this is a conversation I even had with my own family. Like, I sat down with my family because I had to explain myself to them why I was trans, which was such a horrible thing to have to do. But like, I even told them, I said, do you love me, or do you love your expectation of me? And they were understandably very offended by that statement, but that's what it comes down to.
But it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling so many people in the chat, I have a feeling, you all can answer if I'm right or wrong, but did anybody else like get a little attacked? Not literally by Steve, but when Steve said that's not family, that's abuse, anybody else was just like, oh shit. that hits. That hits. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I didn't. I didn't mean it like
Steve,
an attack. I mean,
I'm not saying that. I'm using colloquialisms to express that I think a lot of people get what you're going through, not as a literal attack.
That's what I figured you might have meant. But it seems like in this midst of this cultural battle, like we're just becoming so vicious and cruel to each other sometimes, which is a whole separate conversation. And where possible, I don't like to participate in that, which is one of the reasons I appreciate the tack that you and some other people in the community take, where you're just more, I don't know what you'd call it, more charitable or more open or more understanding or what have you. But
I've definitely gone down some. I can even see times in my content where I've removed a lot of content where I went, oh, that was me going more into personal areas. And but I would say my chief problem now, and why I even struggle with what I'm doing in the spaces I'm in, is it is, no matter which side you are on, you're finding it among your enemies, but also your allies, this theme of people loving to watch the people that they dislike suffer. And the world can't get better. Yeah. If the world was a person, its heart is sick as fuck. It is just not good of what's going on right now. Like, again, it's not just about our enemies; it's about our allies too. This idea of just loving to watch the public executions. Essentially, it's gotten real low and real sick, and I don't know how to be a part of the counterculture to that without then bringing it on, because there are times where you're literally like giving themes of like, look, you still have to recognize these bad people as human, and you get attacked for suggesting a person who has been reduced to some label is a human, and to treat people who are wrong. And this the reason why I can't let go. We talked about this earlier.
Yep.
I still describe myself as friends with Kwaku, even though Kwaku is, or at least friendly. We haven't talked in a long time, but I think if we did talk, we'd still have a very friendly interaction. But Kwaku has said some fucked up things about people I care about, and has targeted people I care about, and I don't like those things, and they make me mad. But I can't let go of a friendship with a person based on ways I could reduce them in certain labels or commit them to certain ideologies, when I know that, like, I am today a pansexual cis. I'm sorry to disappoint anybody. I am a painfully cis man, but I'm a pansexual man who is now atheist, secular humanist, and I come from a past where I was extremely misogynistic, extremely sexist, extremely queer-phobic, whether you direct that toward orientation or gender. I mean, just the absolute opposite. I was politically conservative. And the people who changed my mind were the people who weren't like me, but still extended to me love and humanity. And I can't join in these cultures of like, oh, we disagree. You are scum of the earth, because a person who disagrees now might be the person who is a major activist for what you do love later. everybody has the potential to not suck. And instead, it seems like everybody's like, well, I have the potential, but I'd rather just suck instead. It's fucking tough.
Well, and I think that's I think the dilemma for me for everything that I've just said about not wanting to be part of that culture. I got to tell you that in like my parents' case and some of the people around my parents, like watch Handmaid's Tale. That is no BS. Like exactly the headspace that my parents are in. Like my parents, I just had a conversation with my dad about this the other day. My dad wants to see the government ban and control oral sex. Like that's
gross.
So fringe lunacy.
Horrible.
Like, I mean, I asked my dad, like, hey, do you like, because I was just getting a certain feeling from him, and he flat out said to me, I think theocracy would be a step forward for the United States. And it's like, wow. Like, what do you do with people like that are so fringe that, like, you can't have a meaningful conversation with them because they're so set in their ways? And so I don't want to say that there's never a time for a harder-edged approach.
Sure.
And I feel like you've maybe struck a good balance with that. Like, one of my all-time favorite calls, at least especially the ending of the call, I think it might have been Otangelo, like in Brazil. I can't remember who it was, but the thing about like, slavery is a month-long conversation, and it was very condescending. And then finally, like, all right, I'll see you in a month.
I remember that guy.
What do you do at a certain point? If you want to defend slavery, like, I think we live in a different reality,
So it was a guy talking to Matt and I, and Matt was ready to debate slavery with the guy, and the guy basically said that guy would first have to give us like a month of classes for us to be able to understand biblical slavery on the level he understands it, to even be able to engage in debate. And it was like, good, fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. Like, fucking, anyway, because it isn't that difficult of a concept. I will tell you, it's interesting when it's our families, because our families know our buttons and our, like I've always said, there's almost nobody in the world who can make me yell. Truly, truly yell. I have a yell voice. Very few people have heard it. I've been in relationships where I'm constantly getting screamed at, and the yell almost never comes back out. It maybe slips out once or twice. Except my dad. My dad can make me yell like nobody else. And it's interesting because he knows where my buttons are because he put half of them there. Like, that's part of it. Yeah. He's who put the buttons there. And so those are the people where when you talk about, like, I probably agree with you that there is no point in you arguing with your dad about that, but I bet I could. And it's not because I'm better at arguing than you are. It's because your dad knows how to dismiss you. Your dad knows what your argument patterns are. Your dad knows how to fight you, and always can take it to places that are personal, that will elicit an emotional response. Your dad doesn't know fucking shit about me, doesn't know shit about how I can, and so it's one of those things where not only could I probably argue with your dad better than you can, you could do the same thing with my dad, because my dad's just going to make me yell. He knows how.
I totally get it. It's like our family is like a blind spot within each of us where they've just learned to dismiss us and not take us seriously. No, I don't take that personally at all. As soon as you started talking about that, I instantly knew what you meant, because I agree. I guess the reason that I brought it up was there are clearly people out there, especially in the wake of January 6th, that will not take no for an answer. And my parents happen to be some of those people, given things that I've experienced, including things like showing up at my property and coming into my house unannounced after I've told them that that's not okay to just show up, and then start yelling at me on my own property that I need to come to peace or something, which is of course ludicrous. But that's the one thing I wanted to highlight in this. For as much as I believe in the charitability and not engaging, and I believe the German borrow word is Schadenfreude, harmjoy, trying to avoid that as much as we can, there are people that do not respond to a lesser means of, shall we say, volume raising. And that still is very much a dilemma in me as to how to handle those people, because I think I've gotten to the point where it's like, well, I don't want to take this action, but you're forcing my hand. I've done every possible other step that I can do, and it's not me. You're forcing this.
Yeah. Because they're topics that get our fight or flight response. And when it comes down to it, we're talking about stuff that is so existential and emotional at the same time that a fight or flight response is totally understandable. And then we have, it sounds like you've run into what I've run into with my own family, where just the concept of first introducing a boundary and second enforcing the boundary, what the boundaries are don't matter as much. That you do either of those things often offends those toxic people in your life.
Yes.
In other words,
I think what was it? Thomas Sowell said that when people have gotten used to being in a position of privilege, equality feels like persecution. Something like that, but it was really great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so with our families,
I cut you off there.
No, you're good. And so with our families, it can be like you meet this resistance and anger and hostility because you said, I would like this boundary. No matter how reasonable the boundary is, they're just offended that you're putting the boundary in. So one of the first steps sometimes to having a relationship with somebody that has views that are not the same as yours is you have to first go, we have to have a baseline of respect where if I say I want a boundary, you respect it. And where you say you want a boundary, we respect each other's boundaries. You can't do it without it. Now, if you have my family, you then get manipulative people who are like, oh, okay, well then one of my boundaries is you have to pray with us, shit like that. And you're like, that's not what a boundary is, you idiot. Like,
that's
fuck
not
off
a
of that
boundary.
shit. Right, right. Your boundaries are...
my boundary is if you want me to pray with you, then put a gun in your mouth. What the hell?
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
It's where religion becomes the problem of my religion is that you must act a certain way. That's not how it works. That's not how religious freedom works.
Yes, and that's the whole problem that I've come to see is some people... For them, and this is the group of people that I've come to realize, and it sounds like maybe you have, but you just have to deal with completely differently, is the group of people that they don't seem to genuinely believe their religion so much as they use and weaponize their religion to control other people. Like, I don't know how else to deal with people that, apparently want to see democracy overthrown. I mean, holy shit.
Yeah.
They say atheists, it's been said maybe atheists shouldn't be considered Americans. Like, holy shit, what about that?
Yeah.
When you want to, see democracy destroyed, that's about as un-American as it possibly gets. Maybe we should be talking about Christian nationalism being un-American a little more,
Well, except now you have the new propaganda is that you can straight up say you are a Christian nationalist in America and not be met with, oh, you're a fucking fascist. Like, was it Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene this week that said, we should add Christian nationalism to our platform? It was one of the two.
I think kind of both of them to an extent. I think one of them said it explicitly, and the other one said very similar things.
I hate both of them. That's just a fun little fact about Jimmy. My God. And I've hated Lauren Boebert slightly longer than everybody else because I was in her state when she was running.
Same, yeah.
Yeah. God, she's the worst. Yeah. Oh, my God. I just garbage person. But I feel sorry for her. And I try, if I were to engage her somehow in debate, I would try to come from the place of compassion of every single abuser that you will ever meet was a victim before they were an abuser. It's almost universally true with small exceptions. And it can take humanizing a person. This is not to excuse a single thing they ever do, by the way. I don't let anyone off the hook for the abuse they do because they were a victim first. But I still feel a level of pity and humanity and a hope for growth. I'm still going to talk about how fucking insane the transformed wife is, even though when I look at her, I'm like, holy shit, this is a person who was bombarded by abuse before she became the monster. And this is why I'm not impressed by allies who are bullies, allies who are like, oh, I was bullied my whole life for this thing. And the moment I got power, instead of going, I'm going to use my power for good and show bullies that bullying is wrong, they go, you thought you were a bully. You haven't seen what you've seen nothing yet. I fucking hate that approach. It's destroying the world, and why I have little, it is both my allies and my enemies that make me think that we're in the last days, just not before the second coming. I just mean the last days of humanity. We're just going to nuke ourselves to oblivion at some point. I don't know. Fucked up. It's all fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, number one, you're right. Number two, because I think we all like hearing, things nice said about ourselves. I think one of the best things, maybe the best thing I've ever heard you say is, and I'm going to paraphrase for sake of time, but it was basically like stigmatization doesn't work. Like just throwing people out of community and not having a relationship with them in broad brushstrokes and in general terms does not fix the problem.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I have a solution, but that.
they'll find the community of people who will validate them. Yep. So if you meet a transphobe, or you meet a homophobe, or you meet a person who supports trickle-down economics, all super stupid positions. I had to get my little bit of socialism in there for a moment there, but all really stupid
don't worry,
positions.
I'm pretty much the same on those beliefs, so you're fine, buddy.
and you try to shame them out of it and isolate them away. That maybe that worked. It's technically, that's not family, that's abuse, could apply here or there, but maybe that worked at some point in the past. It doesn't work anymore because they have the easiest way to get away from that is to then go find the other abusive, shitty people who will welcome you. And it's telling because you see some people do it. I am not at all a fan of a certain ex-president of American Atheists who basically, as soon as people were like, hey, you touching people against their will is not cool. You know, he did a bunch of fucked up shit and then was basically like, well, the way in which he's like the perfect example of this, where he used to talk about how he's so blue, he makes the sky look red, and shit like that.
Oh my.
Meanwhile, as soon as he is approached and isolated, and I'm not, it's hard to say like that was wrong because I so dislike this person, but that's probably my flaw.
Well, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Everyone knows who I'm talking about.
Having seen how he handled that publicly.
Yeah.
Like, even if the allegations weren't true, it's like, no, he was a horrible representative. Like, if this is how he's going to act, holy no.
Right.
Like, even if this isn't true, you need to be gone.
Right. His reaction was, people, either I did this, or though he seemed to acknowledge some of it, but people believed this about me and I was stripped of my good standing in the community. And then he's saying like non-nuanced things like, and therefore the left decides to lose Roe v. Wade. Like it was that extreme. It's that personal centric. And so on the one hand, he doesn't get an excuse from me for doing that because it would have been nonstop. You know, I've been the victim of fucking public attacks too. It sucks. It feels like garbage. But there are those people who go, I'm going to go find the community of people who will still accept me as the piece of shit I am and go get their validation. And that's what happened in that case. It's literally like when you have no path to redemption, you have no path to like, you know, will accept that everybody is flawed, especially when the whole internet is covered with fucking people who are purity checking that can't meet their own purity check. We just talked about this before the show. Yeah. These are not people who can live up to their own standards. They're crazy. Yeah, they're little fucking, you know, fucking little emotional fascists.
Like, and some of them, like, maybe make sense. Like, on the topic of slavery, I mean, like, you know, come on, there's a line somewhere, but, you know, like, just most of them, it just feel like, you know, come on, you know?
Yeah.
This is a little far to make purity checks for every little thing.
Right, and don't get me wrong, there is a limit. There are certain things you can do that you have to be removed from society for either short periods of time or forever. But the shit that we are trying to commit people to basically a life of unemployment and misery, and, you know, you're not allowed to have friends ever again and all this sort of stuff. You're not allowed to have, that's one of the ones that I never understood, where it's like, hey, so-and-so, we canceled so-and-so. How come you good people are still in their community? It's like, do you want to remove every good person from that person's life? Like, don't you want the people around them that are going to check them and hopefully improve them and all that fucking shit? That's the one I can't fucking stand the most. The guilty by association of like, hey, why is Jon Stewart's friends with Dave Chappelle? Fuck yeah. You know who else I hope is friends with Dave Chappelle? Trevor Noah. Because both of them could talk to Dave Chappelle about trans issues in a way that might change their mind, and we know he respects both of them. Like, fuck yeah, those people should stay their friend. So that stuff drives me up the wall too, but, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You might be like, fuck you, Jimmy. Cancel me now, Ben.
Cancel Jimmy. Everyone cancel Jimmy.
It's already been done like 6 times.
Well, and of course, that's what's so funny about cancel culture is this probably applies to at least Jimmy, if not you as well, Ben. I know it applies to me. Is, you know, oh, cancel culture, it's the evilest thing. And it's like, I grew up with my parents canceling, you know, our entire cable subscription because, like, apparently HBO, which we weren't even subscribed to, aired a movie that we didn't, you know, that my parents didn't like and would never watch. And it's like, cancel culture was like a Christian thing. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's like at least the 80s and 90s doing this.
I do always love that when you have the Republicans that are like, we just hate the left-wing cancel culture, so let's legislate them out of existence. What the fuck is that, you dipshits?
I mean, I can remember all of the
culture again.
Yeah.
I can remember all of the TV shows I was not allowed to watch as a kid because they had magic in them. So, I mean...
Yeah, though isn't it fucked up now that there were people when we were younger that were like, don't you look at that Harry Potter, and now I'm kind of wish I'd listened to them. That's a joke about how much J.K. Rowling sucks. Anyways, Steve,
they got one thing right accidentally.
but not for the right reasons.
Not for the right reason.
Right, exactly. Steve, we've got a few more calls, but I think this was a great one too, and it's I think there are a lot of people who will appreciate these conversations and calls, because one thing that I've also noticed in engaging with people is most common people, even some of the people who do engage in these problems, don't actually like it. They don't like being a part of mobs. They don't like, and so where they might feel passionate on one mob that they even belong to, they see it in general and go, I don't know how this could possibly work. And then a lot of people live in fear of I've seen the way this is sometimes arbitrarily applied, and so I live in fear that I'm going to receive it for some just mistake I made at some point. This isn't to say don't call people out. This isn't to say don't admit things are gross when they're gross. We don't really need the mob elements. We can representative democracy a lot of that shit. A lot of the people, the mob element is, there's never, mob justice is not a positive phrase, and yet people act like, but it has justice in it. It must be good. It's a negative phrase. Maybe we should start acknowledging that. But Steve, it was really great to talk to you. Go ahead, give us some last thoughts.
It was great talking to you. I don't have a lot of opportunity for community. Sorry, I cut you off there again. Don't have a lot of opportunity for community out here. Definitely appreciate it. I guess my final thing I'd say is, the thing about praying to a higher power or whatever in AA, don't forget about the old George Carlin joke, pray to Joe Pesci, you get your prayers answered at about the same rate anyway.
Yeah. That'll succeed at the same rate. Yeah, definitely. All right. Thank you, Steve.
All right. Thanks, man. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
There was somebody had made a point that I wanted to. Oh, by the way, look, I actually do have very negative thoughts about cancel culture, and I do think it is overused. I think, but that it isn't necessarily inherently wrong to deplatform somebody. It's more of the mob justice stuff that I don't like. I keep hitting the wrong one. It's more of the mob justice stuff I don't like. But there are times, there are elements of it where it's appropriate and stuff. The funniest thing is that the people who whine the most about cancel culture are Christians, I feel. Christian conservatives.
Yeah.
Can somebody explain to me what is more canceling than anybody who doesn't agree with you will be tortured for eternity? Cancel culture is nothing compared to people going to hell who were good people who tried to help other people but didn't go to the right church on Sunday, so they burn for eternity. Yeah. You want to talk about arbitrary reasons to dish out a fucking type of... Now, that's not mob justice. That's capricious narcissist dick in the sky justice. Nothing to me is so stupid as listening to Ted Cruz complain about cancel culture, even as he's sitting there just well, all them queers are going to know what's going on when they're burning in hell for eternity. Fucking cancellation. Eat my fucking ass. Not Ted Cruz. Fuck you. God, I don't like that man.
You've said a lot of very clippable things in this episode, and
usually,
I expect it to get memed.
Usually when I say eat my ass, I follow it with, and not in the beautiful way. I usually like to... Yeah. Religion's version of cancel culture far more severe and consequential than everything else. Yeah, according to American Christians, Anne Frank's in hell and Hitler's in heaven. I think most American Christians would make an exception for Hitler despite his Christianity and be like, well, no, God probably. But, there are definitely versions. In Mormonism, they're both in heaven now because Mormonism has on multiple occasions done the posthumous baptism for both of them. Apparently, they didn't think the first time took, and they did multiples. Yeah. Anyway, any thoughts you wanted to wrap up as I get name tags in here that I realize I've been slacking on?
Not really. I mean, we said a lot of good points in that one, and I think a lot of people in this community struggle with isolation. Isolation is something common to a lot of us, and I do think the internet is a great place and an awful place at the same exact time, because on the one hand, you do have these people that I think the majority of my friends right now are in this online space because, I mean, med school is also very isolating, so it's been great, but then also you do get these little pockets of drama here and there, and then the idea of parasocial interactions where you don't really know the person sometimes, and that can throw some wrenches into it. But I do have to say that at least if people are looking for something to go to, the online space is a good place to go, and you might not be friends with everybody you meet in this space, but you can easily find, a small group of a few people that you can get along with. So at least in the interim, while you're looking for a more permanent community, there's definitely people around here that are welcoming.
And with the metaverse and VR and all that shit coming, you might be able to. I've told people this a bunch of times. It is absolutely true, and nobody believes it until they try it. It feels more like you can be in a game like VR chat where you're a whale and the other person is Kermit the Frog. And it feels more like hanging out in person with somebody than Skype where you're actually looking at their face, or Zoom.
That's hilarious.
There's this, because you have a spatial experience.
Yeah.
There's spatial audio, there's visual audio, and there's something about, as far as when you're done, whether or not you actually feel like you were just around somebody or not.
Interesting.
It is strange. I of course love virtual reality. Have you ever tried it?
I have not to that level.
Not for social, but have you tried anything in VR?
Yeah, a little bit.
Because I have it
cool.
downstairs if you want to try it before you leave. I'm just saying it's the best.
It's so disorienting sometimes, I think.
That's true. It takes some getting used to for some people, and the first time a person does it, they often will get a little bit motion sick. But let's pop into some other calls here. Do you have a hard stop time? Should we try and wrap up quickly, or should we take these as... Okay, cool. Cool. You and I, neither of us ever try to no sleep. What I'll probably do is take the calls that we have left on the line. So if anybody's trying to call in now, we're probably not going to do any calls beyond this. I do want to say thank you to our call screener. I believe it is Mika tonight. Mika, you can drop whenever you like, but thank you to call screeners. Also, a big thank you to the people who are modding the chat, the people who are, we have a bunch of people who help out in a bunch of ways, and we just really love them. So we still have calls to go. This is not me ending the show. It sounds like I'm wrapping up. We still have calls to go, but interjecting here, a big thank you to all of the people who helped out with today's episode. Let's pop to talking to somebody in Texas, which is where we are. How is that even possible? We're talking to Will in Texas. Pronouns he, him, wants to discuss some things about supernatural stuff.
First off, I wanted to throw out this compliment to you about when you were telling the earlier caller that he shouldn't tell his family about, when it came to religion, but ask them questions.
Oh, thanks.
Using the Socratic method is a really good way to get people to possibly change their position, is when they have to figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great advice.
Well, I just
wanted to get that quick one in.
I appreciate that. One thing I find very interesting about it too, and the Socratic method, is even when it doesn't change their mind, when you face them with questions, they will often have a moment where they recognize they can't satisfactorily fully answer those questions. And they'll realize there's a chasm between you and them, where you can almost get more respect from them, where they go, look, I still don't agree with you, but I'm seeing that there are specific questions that are the difference between what I believe and you believe. And I get that my answers aren't satisfactory. And so there's something even about where you might not get them to change their mind, but where they might come at you with a little more understanding that can be very successful and very nice about it. Anyway, just thought I'd add that little note.
I just wanted to tell you that that was great advice. First thing I had, and I'll try and make it quick. Okay, I consider myself an atheist, disbelief in God. Now, my disbelief includes all the supernatural.
Yeah.
Angels, demons, jinns, tarot cards, psychics, NDEs, ghosts, it's across the spectrum.
Sure.
And I actually put this question in chat and got a real, I thought, good answer. I can't remember his name, but he said, well, it depends on your skepticism.
Sure.
I guess, does being an atheist mean you can't believe in ghosts? Or
God, I wish it did.
Believe in ghosts and magic and still be atheist because atheism only addresses the God or gods issue?
Yeah, so here's the deal, that I feel like my first year of YouTube was constant disillusionment with what I thought I knew about atheists as a community and as a whole. That if a person is an atheist, they're more likely to also be a skeptic. They're more likely to also value science. They're more likely to actually understand the difference between something that is, validated by faith means versus like actual logical means, things like Barnum's statements and the like. And I've learned, and this is going to be terrible news for anybody who's still pre-disillusionment, atheists are entirely capable of sucking. And a lot of them do. And now, not everybody who has a belief necessarily sucks, but you should not presume to know
some. Is that oral sex that you can?
No, I mean sucking.
From the chat alert.
The more colloquial sucking. I know I keep letting out these words that are easy to play with, but no, there's no guarantee of skepticism from an atheist, from a person who says that they're an atheist. One of the ones that I keep hitting is astrology. It is becoming more and more popular. Mm-hmm. It is not true. And astrology is...
what would be a better label than just an atheist that would include all my skepticism of all supernatural?
So some people...
Supernatural?
Yeah. I only use the term...
Maybe a skeptic, so just a better term?
I only use the term skeptic. I know there are some people out there like Aron Ra who use a recently invented term by another YouTuber like 5-10 years ago. By what I mean recent. They use the term epistivist, which is meant to be a person who rejects and has no use of faith, the religious concept of faith. Some people like that term. I usually just use the term skeptic because if I'm going to be talking about it anyway, if somebody's asking me for that term, I'm going to start bringing up all the things I don't believe in anyway, because that's my entire personality. I'm a non-multifaceted person. I'm single-faceted. Just boring, really is. But anyway, there is a difficulty in the atheist world. And as you're trying to promote skepticism, but especially people who might be attracted to your content because you're debunking Christianity, you're debunking things like purity culture.
Well, I get NDEs thrown at me so often, and I'm like, so people had brain asphyxiation.
What?
They had hallucinations.
Near-death experience.
Oh, yeah.
A near-death experience was real. Or you saw the light and you went to heaven. Why culturally do other cultures have a different NDE experience?
Yeah.
They act like that's the cat's meow, like
NDEs,
the supernatural.
NDEs also often have huge amounts of presumption in them. Because somebody will say, I died and then I went and did this. And it was like, wait, you said you were dead. Yeah. So how do you have a timeline on this? How do you know this wasn't a dream that you had as you were slipping into death? How do you know this wasn't a dream as you were coming out and your brain's shaking up all those fucking chemicals in your head? And then there's a lot you can take apart. The one that I keep hitting is astrology. A lot of people believe in it, and it's particularly popular amongst some people more than other people. And when you address it and you want to talk about the ways it actually can be harmful, because a lot of people go, well, it's not hurting anybody. Anything that isn't true, that is a multi-billion-dollar, real quick.
People say that doesn't hurt anything.
Sure,
we know better.
Sure, it's also a multi-billion-dollar thing. It has the capitalist incentive. It's exploitive. There are people who take it so seriously. I've had people contact me basically about how their parents are religiously into astrology, and it has limited what they've been allowed to do for extracurricular activities at school and shit like that. Anything that's an ideology will find a way to abuse, but also it finds a way to arbitrarily categorize people. This sort of idea where it would be absurd to say something like, I'm not going to date anybody who's black or anybody who has this feature or this feature. And yet there are people who go, I'm not going to date anybody who was born in the months of February, July, and August, because the way that we use this categorization system that people are genuinely adhering to. But also, we already understand how Barnum statements work. We already understand how psychics pull their shit off and seem authentic. And yet, it's one of these things where you're saying you guys are using the same methods that a lot of religions use to sell this, but you want an exception because it's not specifically abusive in the way that Christianity is. And you want someone to go like, oh, I'm just going to let that go. Even for the people who are like, I don't believe it. I just like to cosplay it, basically. I just like to participate. I like to participate in the economy of it, which is further promoting it by supporting it financially. And I also
make believe is fun.
Yeah. It's a broadcasting of acceptance too, even in some secular circles where I go like, man, these people who are doing this and are promoting it as acceptable. It's kind of like the way I say, I don't give an exception to polytheism as being wrong and promoting a concept of that a faith, making a decision based on faith is acceptable when we've never, ever once been able to demonstrate that that is a unique methodology to getting to truth. And we can very many times demonstrate it's actually a methodology that often gets you to abuse. Go ahead.
You're using the term faith. Can we segue into the second question?
Well, can I chime in a little bit?
Yeah.
On this first.
Let's let Ben get a word in edgewise here.
Well, because I think it's important too to differentiate between atheism and skepticism, purely because atheism refers to a conclusion that somebody got to that they do not believe in a god or gods, but that doesn't address their thought process of how they got there. Because if you approach this, like if you have a top-down approach versus a bottom-up approach, whereas like skepticism would imply a bottom-up approach of I by default do not accept these claims as true, and then you're ruling in options versus starting from the top saying I believe in all of these options and I'm going to rule them out. So it's a rule in versus a rule out situation. Right. So someone might have gotten to the conclusion of not believing in a god, but they came from this top-down approach of saying, well, I ruled these out. My thought process was ruling them out, but this other thing of astrology or Reiki or whatever it is that they're putting in there, they have not yet ruled that out. So their thought process to get there was not a skeptical approach, but they could still consider themselves to be an atheist. Yeah. But I think if we differentiate that, like, is this your conclusion or is this your thought process? I think is more helpful in a way of saying, like, kind of understanding where they're coming from and where they're going, if that makes sense.
Right. And when it comes to atheism, I would venture to say a fairly large majority came from the presupposition that God was real, and they had to go through a journey to get to, why am I believing this? You know, what's the evidence? And point taken.
And humans have a general thing that we may have evolved for different reasons. Evolutionary psychology is obviously like a really fucked up thing to even speculate about because it's so easy to get everything wrong. But clearly there is a sense we all have of wanting to understand the universe and understand our place in it. And this sense of there must be more meaning because I feel like it would all be for naught if not. And I don't want to commit myself to that meaning is arbitrary or that I pick meaning. I want to be the subject of an amazing story with tremendous purpose. And obviously we all feel that way, but a lot of people can't then separate out and go, but maybe that isn't the answer to any of it. Maybe I'm not the main character of a movie or a video game or whatever else. But we want that. We want that sense of prescribed purpose and duty. And we also want to be able to, you know, it makes sense why people who think they understand the universe because they have connected to something that is extremely, in my opinion, stupid. It's got to feel good, you know, to go like, man, I am this incredibly unexceptional person who has put no effort into actually learning about the true facts of the universe, and yet I know its secrets. And by the way, it was also created with me specifically in mind. Like, it's got to feel very nice to believe that, but again, I'd rather suffer in reality than find joy in delusion.
In the last one, I'll be brief.
Yeah.
You talked about faith, and faith is gullibility. It's belief without evidence. I have no use for it. When people use it, it's disturbing the lack of logic. However, I may not have faith, but I do have hope in things. And
sure,
hope is kind of like you're acknowledging that there is no evidence. I mean, I can hope for a better medical prognosis or not, but I find hoping that I will is something that I want to do.
Sure. But these are different concepts.
Your, feeling on, and I think people use faith at times when they
right.
really mean hope if they analyze it.
So it's usually confidence is the word I see it mixed up with the most is confidence, and it's an equivocation fallacy that religious people love to use because they like to say, I have faith in Jesus, but you have faith in science. These are totally different concepts. Hebrews 11 verse 1, you will find the religious definition of hope. It is the idea of belief without seeing, essentially. And the context of seeing then is without evidence. And so it is an acceptance of something as religious faith is accepting something as true without demonstration, without evidence, without faith. So you could technically have faith, like if you want a better prognosis, if you just decide, you know, I no longer have a tumor or something, that you could get.
If I have one, I'm not going to rely on make believe.
Yeah, exactly.
And something here too, like especially I do agree that I think it's an equivocation fallacy between faith and confidence.
Right.
But something that we can point out when we have these discussions is that confidence is measurable. Like especially referring to it in a scientific sense, you can calculate confidence. You can demonstrate how confident you can be in something.
Sure.
Which is funny. So when you start
go into a doctor's office and you'll see the 10 faces of what's your pain level today. Yes, it can be measured.
Well, I mean that's a subjective example, but I mean. Like, and I make videos on this frequently. Like when people say like, I am 95% confident in this, especially when they're talking about an alternative therapy, like, well, but confidence statistically has a measure. Like you can calculate out confidence. Like what is your interval that you're considering to be significant? And it's really funny how those terms end up floating around to mean different things. But yeah, I definitely agree with Jimmy on this, that it's people trying to substitute this faith concept to then equal this confidence.
Yeah, the colloquialism. It's using the colloquialism literally when it doesn't. We do it all the time with all other types of words. The internet loves to do it with gaslight right now. There's a new version of the word gaslight that is a colloquialism that basically just means I disagree with your perception of reality. I'm telling you your perception of reality is wrong, your memory is wrong, your whatever is wrong. Where gaslighting is actually manipulating a person into thinking they're insane. And so we do it all the time where we want to use the colloquialism gaslight, but we want the impact of the actual term referring to a type of abuse. And
can I ask Dr. Ben something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay. The purpose of that is not so much my dwelling on faith as can hope be legit. When I hear faith, I discount it. But when I say I have hope in something, I don't see anything wrong with that. It doesn't, to me, have any sort of theistic implications.
Oh, I agree with you.
And it's my understanding that having a positive outlook can improve things from your immune system to your healing and whatnot, just having a positive outlook. I have hope. I guess I was more interested in y'all's response to the idea of hope.
I don't see a problem with it as long as it's, keeping it as a subjective reasonable expectation or like wanting something to happen in a certain way. I don't think there's a problem with that.
No one does, yeah.
Yeah. Just like when people take that and misapply it to, I have hope in this thing, so I'm going to stop taking my chemotherapy or whatever it is. Like that's where it starts being dangerous. But if you're just saying, I hope that this will be the outcome, I don't think that is inherently harmful. I don't think we should negate that entirely. It's just applying it appropriately and having reasonable expectations for things that are going to happen.
Many terms have multiple definitions, and if you say you used it in this way, it actually means basically this is what an equivocation fallacy is. The word faith means something specific in its religious context. If you say, I know God exists because I have faith, that is not the same as I say I have faith in the medical system. Now, I try to avoid the colloquialism now as much as I can because it is so often misconstrued. But to say I have faith in my partner, I have faith in my friend or whatever, these are...
Yeah, that's confidence.
It's a different definition. You're using the colloquial faith definition versus the religious faith version. And so my whole thing with hope is that same thing. Of course you should have hope. In fact, if you don't have hope, why do any of the stuff? Like, I've gone through really vigorous medical treatments for stuff in the past. I did that out of the hope I would be better. If I had no hope I would be better, I wouldn't have done any of it. And so as far as like having hope, just because some people use the word faith incorrectly when ascribing hope doesn't mean I would say give up on the concept of hope. I would just say use your words more deliberately and don't be an equivocating douchebag.
The Calvary will come to save the day.
Here's hoping.
Yeah,
I have faith in the Calvary.
The last comment is you're talking about being pedantic about things. I am very pedantic about theory versus hypothesis. When someone says, "Oh, I have this theory," and I'm like, "No, you don't. You have a hypothesis, and it's a bad one." And I find myself correcting people all the time, and I think that just is because I'm a pedantic a-hole.
I don't think it is. I think it's because you're an atheist, and we are constantly damn near abused with that again, what is happening is an equivocation fallacy where there is a colloquial version of the word theory that actually means hypothesis. And then people will use the scientific phrase like the theory of evolution and suggest that the word theory in that phrase is the colloquial version of theory when it simply is not. Yeah. And so can we be pedantic when a person is doing it totally harmlessly or without malice? Yeah, sure. But at a certain point, it's like, you guys stab me with knives with the word theory on it when you mean hypothesis half the time. I'm tired of these stabs. Yeah.
I've had royal arguments over it. One last thing to put a bow on the call.
Sure.
Mika did an awesome job, your call acceptor.
Hell yeah.
And she popped my cherry because this was the first time I'd ever called into a show. So kudos to her, and I've enjoyed our conversation.
Phrasing. No, I'm just kidding. I can't call anybody else out on the phrases there.
You cannot.
Phrasing. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, Will.
Y'all have a good day.
You too. I thought about like almost acting mad about it. Like, how dare you use such a phrase? How could this? We don't appreciate such pun
Jimmy
work.
never says anything sexual on air ever.
No, I mean everything. Everything is completely fine.
PG.
I'm not talking about filling holes or your dad hole.
God hole.
That's everybody can shut up. I just like the book Holes.
I still think my favorite was the community hole. That's the best one so far.
The community hole. I have been reading up on Polly lately. See if there's anything interesting happening in the live chat. I did see we lost like 20 or 30 viewers when I said astrology isn't true. it's just like, how is this a surprise to you? That my skepticism, I don't turn it off for that. I don't turn it off for essential oils. I don't turn it off for fucking Reiki, fucking moon lamps, salt lamps. Fuck, man. Like, what the fuck? How's anybody surprised? They're like, it's also funny when it comes up with other religions too, where they're like, oh, Jimmy, I like you debunking Christianity, but how dare you suggest Islam is fucked up? Like, that's clearly the one religion started by a fucking pedophile. That's fine. I can't stand that shit. Fucking.
They're all garbage.
Yeah, too many pedophiles starting religions. Mm-hmm. It's weird. Joseph Smith, Muhammad, married a 6-year-old. You know that?
Yeah.
And then they'll say like, yeah, but he didn't consummate it for 4 years. Do the math, you dipshits. Do the fucking math. Anyway, I'll get canceled for that take. Essential oils are important. My car engine will not run without them. That's not what we mean by essential oils. And there are probably therapeutic, there are ways in which peppermint can help nausea and shit. It's the people that are like, it'll cure cancer. Don't vaccinate. Just combine parsley with lemon oil. That's the shit that drives me crazy.
I have videos about this, so shameless plug.
Yeah, we're going to do one about essential oils. I hope. You and I.
Yeah.
Oh, no. We were going to do chiropractic.
Yeah, we can do more than one.
Yeah.
More than one episode.
Yeah. Chiropractic, the elements of chiropractic, which are bullshit, but are hidden in shrouds of some things that are not. Yeah, Joseph Smith was a pedophile also. So, okay. Yes. But it's one of those situations where some people think you need to specify, technically he was a hebephile. He wasn't attracted to prepubescence. He was attracted to a 14-year-old girl that he blackmailed her family into marrying her to him, and with whom he was he fucked.
Messed up.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Joseph Smith. Breaking news here: Mormonism, Joseph Smith. I don't enjoy those things. I know everybody is fucking shocked right now. They're just like, what? Jimmy, you're blowing our minds. Let's talk to, is this the right one? Andy, pronouns he, him, is an atheist from Tennessee, but I'm the only 10 I see. No, that's how dare I?
Just end the show.
That was just mean too. You're sitting right here. Andy, what would you like to chat about? Compulsory talking. I don't know what that could be.
Yeah, well, there are compulsive talkers.
Mm-hmm.
There are also compulsive listeners. And when they interact with each other, very little communication actually takes place. Because the compulsive listeners are always waiting for their turn to get a word in edgewise. I wonder if you've ever been part of such a scenario.
Is this a lecture, Andy? Are you calling in to try on my show to tell me to shut up and listen more?
Maybe partly, but mostly.
I hung up on him. I don't give a shit. Whose show do you think you're calling? Of course I'm a compulsory talker. I'm a fucking YouTuber. Oh my God. Let's go talk to fucking... I know there are going to be a lot of people who have a problem with that, and I simply do not give a fuck. Welcome to the line. This is my channel and my show. I don't... You want to send me an email with your lectures, send me an email with your lectures, because I'm a compulsive go fuck yourselfer. Let's talk to Derek. Also from... No, I put Canada, but you're not from Canada. You are from Tennessee. No, I put Tennessee, you're from Canada. Derek from Canada, the atheist, he, him. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. How you doing?
I just hung up on somebody because I didn't like the air of their lecture.
Yeah, Andy sounded like a douche from the start.
I didn't say it, Derek. Might have been the nicest person. I don't know. Maybe all was in goodwill, but I just had this little who the fuck do you think you're talking about? Do you really think most of the people calling in also don't know who they're calling to talk to? I literally made the joke at the beginning where I was like, there's my 7-minute answer that could have been summarized by the word yes. Who do you think you're calling and giving that lecture to? Oh, I don't realize I'm a compulsory talker. And by the way, I saw that in the notes and I was waiting 30, 40 minutes to hang up. I knew I was gonna, but I gave the opportunity to see. Anyway, Derek, you want to talk about nihilism, but why? Does it matter? Just kidding. That was a pun. Go ahead.
I like that one. Punny.
So punny.
Yeah, so I'm in a position where faith, religion, was... I believed in it in a sense of how I believed in Santa. And so I was 6, 7, and was, figured out that all that was nonsense.
Yeah.
And since then, growing up, I kind of lived in a bubble of innocence, and after reaching some form of adulthood, I'm just, especially a little bit more background. I do have some chronic pain going on. I have fibromyalgia, along with a whole lot of IBS. I feel you a lot there when I hear you talk about that.
I never say it. I never say specifically what it is on air, but a lot of people with IBS have figured it out. They're like, Jimmy drops a lot of...
Oh, it wasn't said? I just assumed it was said at this point. Oh.
I don't think so, but I know I've dropped a lot of hints.
Yeah, I might have just put the pieces together. It's very possible. You can usually pick out a fellow sufferer Although Crohn's can be similar.
Yeah, I've had a lot of...
You hear that they almost died.
I have told people, I have said out loud on air that I don't have Crohn's because a number of people have suggested that perhaps I have Crohn's, but I've been tested for it and I don't have it.
Oh, but just with all that, I do tend to find, and like financially, I'm kind of like on the poverty line. And so I do tend to find like I'm struggling with what's the point of going on with the system.
Sure. Okay.
And I was wondering what your guys' take would be and how you guys would address something like that.
First, we're going to come right into that, and we're going to hit it hard and hopefully answer this well. Before we do, Ben, this is our last call, but I could open some more lines if you feel like you're having fun and you want to go longer. But
I have to get up at 4 because I'm on inpatient medicine this week.
So we'll just stick with this as the last call. And the funny thing is, I describe myself as a universal nihilist, but I think it's a positive. Do you want to go first?
I mean, we're just talking about kind of everything in general, or is there a specific system that, because you said the word system, and I'm curious if there's something in particular that you're really thinking about.
It's really just trying to cope with what the system I'm referring to would just be basically capitalism.
Okay. Yeah.
Dealing with a capitalistic society where there's very much like a 1% that have a lot of power, and then there's a vast majority that are kind of struggling to keep milk in the fridge.
Oh, and I definitely feel where you're coming from there, especially being in the medical field myself and seeing disparities that exist that you have no power to do anything about.
Yep.
Like where you really know what the right thing is for somebody, you know what treatment somebody needs, what follow-up somebody needs, and you know that you cannot offer it to them based on the current system. And it's absolutely heartbreaking, and it's very easy to get compassion fatigue. I think, like, especially in my field, but I feel everyone in the space is kind of getting compassion fatigue. Like, you're just so heartbroken about how everything is basically shit.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to know kind of where to go from there and how to handle things like that. I know for me, how I deal with it in my own field is, like, I know we've talked a lot about boundaries tonight, but even some boundaries within yourself to think about what are some things that I can control in this system? Where are things that I can push forward and actively change? Because certain things, it's very easy to get bogged down in things that you can do nothing about. And it almost makes things a lot worse. So trying to set boundaries of, I know that this is an issue with society, but I cannot do anything in my current situation with that, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I don't want to bring up I don't want to open the floodgates with this issue, but with certain topics like veganism, like I see there's some merits to that discussion, but in my current state, there's so much else that I'm dealing with within the medical sphere, within gender equality and LGBTQ rights and all that I do not have.
Bigger fish to fry.
I do not have the energy nor the resources to address that issue.
Yeah.
So while I wish I could address every single issue that was going on in the world, I can't.
Yeah.
And it's going to detract from the things that I'm actively fighting for. So I think setting up that boundary within yourself and just even know that I want to do things, but I can't, and that's totally okay. That's somebody else can have their fight somewhere else, and you can have your fight in your place. And I think that's going to be easier because once you get so bogged down with everything, it's a lot harder to see the value in what's going on and harder to see. I know we had a whole discussion about hope, but to see hope in what you're doing and what's going on in the world. So I don't know if that helped at all. That's just kind of how I look at this issue.
That definitely, that made a lot of sense. Something that just kind of popped up is just, I know a lot of people tend to overblow how good the Canadian healthcare is, but on the mental health side, at least here in my province, I'm in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Our mental health care here is abysmal, and that is definitely a part of like my struggles particularly.
Sure.
It's just like I've been on the list for a psych forever, and it's just and like our hospital here, or one mental health hospital, is actually, there's parts of it that are older than Canada. And it desperately needs to be completely just demolished and redone. And it just kind of adds to just hopelessness.
Yep. Yeah. So the interesting thing with nihilism, so the notes in here was nihilism, how to cope with it without religion. The funny thing is, there's a few things. One, a lot of people associate nihilism with being inherently negative, and it's not, because there are forms of nihilism which are actually inherent, you could almost say inherently positive. I consider myself a nihilist, but I have the universal, what's the term, sort of opinion that, how did a call end up in the queue when I closed all the lines? That doesn't make any sense. Well, maybe if it's, I might take that call. You down with one more call after this? Because it looks like it might be a theist.
I can't even see it, but I'm down.
Okay.
I'm down for one more.
But anyway, as far as my own nihilism goes, I try to wrap it up in a very positive blanket of the universe has no meaning, but meaning isn't a quality of the universe anyway. Meaning is a quality of human experience. So why should the universe have meaning? Why should anything have meaning when meaning is a specific quality of human experience? And so therefore, my meaning is my human experience, and it's what I decide it is. So I get to pick what my meaning is. So as a nihilist, I recognize the universe likely has no meaning. There's no reason for any of this. Most things are a result of chaos. I am a result of chaos. My life is chaotic. But I don't sit here and go, therefore, there's nothing left to hope for. There's nothing left to, you gotta find that thing, and you gotta find what's worth living for you. And sometimes it takes a while, and sometimes you have to wait for it to show up. And that can be tough, because in the meantime, if you can't identify it, it can feel like, all right, then why the fuck am I even alive? But it tends to be the experience of people that eventually it does show up. And the harder that you work at finding it, the more likely the purpose will show up, but it won't actually be the one you were looking for often enough. That's one of those funny, like how you find the person you're going to fall in love with when you weren't looking for them, and you find the purpose. You find a different purpose when you were looking for another one. I don't know. That was totally chaotic even in my response. But yeah, it sucks. The universe, it would be cool if there was direct meaning, but then it would also take away an element of individuality, because, if the meaning of the universe is Mormonism's bullshit, then you have a specific prescription for who you are, whether it's compatible with who you are or not. And so it's almost like it's like a relief that Mormonism isn't true, that Christianity isn't true, because it opens up the idea that you get to find a meaning with which you are compatible with, which an arbitrary system isn't going to come along and say, shut the fuck up and fall in line.
Yeah. I actually haven't looked at it with that viewpoint.
I'd give that a try. I hope that that's a useful bit of advice there.
Definitely.
Give it a go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Derek, anything else before we let you go? I think, once again, another call that was productive in that I think there's a lot of people going through what you're thinking of. Oh, no, the person waiting on the line, they left and they were please call back. If you're watching, I want to have the debate with you. Please, Matt, the person's name was Matt. Anyway, sorry. Derek, go ahead.
There was one last thing. I just wanted to pose to you on your opinion on Fahrenheit. Could it be possible that you feel that Fahrenheit is superior in that way because that's what you've always lived with? Because as you were describing that, my brain was like, wait, no, that makes no sense. I couldn't even imagine being like, I'm comfortable at 70. My brain's like, nah, my comfortable temperature is 22.
Sure.
That's where I'm happy.
So where you're locked out is the conversion, and I get that. I'm talking about the broader theory. The reason why I'm going to defend that it's not is my acknowledgement that I learned metric. I'm an American, so I learned imperial first. Then I learned metric and totally recognized that not only is metric better for everything else, it's even better with temperature, with anything time we're talking about. I mean, if you're talking about an element or a compound, technically, if you're talking about water, having a scale where it freezes at 0 and boils at 100, obviously better. But human comfort specifically, yes, a person would have to adjust in the same way that I had to adjust from I associate Fahrenheit 212 degrees is the same as 100 degrees Celsius as far as the boiling points go. I had to make those adjustments. I'm saying after you make the adjustment, a person would recognize the better system, that it is a better system in place to have. Man, the person called back and dropped again. I'm frustrated with this. But it's a better system because it has the same theoretical advantage or hypothetical advantage, I don't know which one I should use, as the same metric advantage in most applications for Celsius, even in most other applications, Fahrenheit has specifically for human experience.
Sure. I think I'm going to have to listen back over that one and really take a think.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think that's everything. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. Yeah, that's the one that's funny, where I'm saying even if I'm talking about water, I'm still going to do Celsius. For water, Celsius is better.
Yeah, and the thing is, if we're talking about, because totally for human experience, of course, obviously, but then also taking into account physiologically, humans are not comparable to water. We operate differently than water, and especially like from a healthcare standpoint. I mean, I've seen places that use both, like Fahrenheit or Celsius, depending on just where you are. But I find it easier to know, like 100, like something over 100, I need to be worried about fever. Whereas you're talking difference between 37 and 38. Like that's it does not catch my attention. If I'm looking at someone's vitals on a screen, that does not catch my attention, that 1 degree difference.
Right.
Whereas even a 99 to 100,
right,
you have a digit difference that catches my attention. So
that's a good point.
I do like it for that reason.
The medical field, yeah, for sure. For sure. There are people who, look, I get that you're going to have your preference, and a lot of them are going to be based in biases. But if you just say Fahrenheit is silly or Celsius is fine, you're not addressing the argument with it's so frustrating. Now I get, none of you are calling in and debating this with me, so I'm not mad at any of you. But it is frustrating where you justify and you give your whole body of justification, and then they're like, no.
He's not mad. He's just disappointed.
I'm just disappointed. I'm just dad for mad. All right. I think it looks like we have the call. Matt, before we begin, because you weren't technically screened,
Hello.
Let me screen the call live here. Is your name Matt, first of all, M-A-T-T?
Yeah, Matt. Yes, M-A-T-T, Matt. Yeah.
Excellent. What are your pronouns?
He, him.
Excellent. And you're calling from the United Kingdom, England. Do you want anything more specific than that?
Yes. You can say Airedale. Yeah, West Yorkshire.
I'm just going to go with UK. That's because I don't want to remember how to spell. Isn't Worcester spelled Worcestershire?
Yorkshire.
And then, are you yourself a theist or an atheist? I think you're a theist.
Atheist, yeah. Atheist, autistic. I was the guy who was masking while sat in church services and get on with it. I don't believe a word of this, but I'll just play along.
So it's interesting because I thought, and we'll take the call anyway, it looked like I thought you were going to be a theist, that is a theist without the word a, the phrase a theist ruins this, but I thought you had a theistic belief because it looks like you want to talk about that you have a working model of a soul and you want to demonstrate that I have one. And I'm worried now if you're an atheist that rather than a working model is what you have is a special definition that nobody would disagree with, but it doesn't actually demonstrate the theistic concept of a soul, which I say we don't have, exists. I'll have the conversation, but is that kind of the road we'd be going down, a special definition sort of deal? Did we lose Matt? Matt? It's not just me, right?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hang
on.
So
Wave at me. Wave if you can hear me. I've got you on my tablet, and I've got you in my ear as well.
I do hear you, and I'm waving, but who knows how long the delay is. I hear you.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Okay, but you do hear me now, right?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
It's my phone. It keeps
no worries.
cutting out.
Give me the model of the soul that you're describing, and I'll tell you whether or not it's
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
yeah, soul. Yeah. So it's the part of you that is identifiably you, but separate than your body. It's not restricted to the material, the matter which comprise your body. It's the bits of you which is identifiably you, but which can be found other than in your own body.
I don't believe in such a concept.
That's not possible.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, here's the closest I will give you. Other people have experiences of me, whether I am with them or not. They don't need my physical body present. And so you could say there is a Jimmy substance, whether I've died and completely decomposed, which they are interacting with. However, I still wouldn't say that that is what you've described, because every element of that substance that is correct, that is authentic and accurate, is still in their head, and it's based on their experience that they had that came from my head. In other words, it's a physical characteristic of theirs that is generating that perception of experience, and it's based on, hopefully, their experience with me, which was generated from my physical reality. But I would not separate any, in reality, it still doesn't work there, because in a greater philosophical sense, I suppose, there is nothing that separates me from me. And even a person who has an accurate experience of me, where they're thinking of me in a way that I would agree with, is not actually having an authentic experience of me. It is still according to their perception. I am glad that it is reflecting reality, but I've had too many experiences with people who have a caricature of me in their mind that is totally inauthentic to say that a person's experience, which is exterior to me, is actually me. Whereas if you were going to give me a concept of a soul that exists outside of me, I would insist that it needs to still authentically be me and not subject to a person's perception. And so I don't believe in this concept, I'm afraid. Matt. Matt, come back. I'm excited to have my idea challenged if... Oh, man. Matt dropped. Obviously, there were connection issues there. We'll give it another minute to see if Matt successfully reconnects. But it is interesting when people have this sort of like, all right, here's a soul. It's a special definition that is nothing.
I hear it.
I can hear.
Oh, okay. Never mind. You're there, Matt.
I can still hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I thought I saw it drop too, but I guess I didn't. Maybe my soul got fucked up.
No.
Yeah.
Matt.
Right.
Were you able to hear?
Okay. I'll.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I want to use a bit of an allegory here. If you look at a chessboard, you say who's winning. You're looking at the material and the development. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you gathered all of the chess pieces and put them back in the box, you've still got all the material, but the development has disappeared. Yeah.
Sure.
So in that case, your body would be all the material. The soul would be the development. It's like the difference between nature and nurture, the difference between genes and memes.
So, hold on. Do you think
your soul is
do you believe in the soul as purely a concept, or do you think that there's an actual physical thing that is a soul? Yeah.
No, it's not physical. It's purely information.
So just a concept. So you're saying that there is a concept
within the material of your body.
Matt, I understand. I think I technically addressed even this essence of thing in my deal. Here's the problem with specifically what you're describing. And I'm going to hate going down this road because it alludes to another argument, specifically the R. Rock's atheist argument.
Yeah, that's where I see it going to. Yeah.
Here's the deal, Matt. Then everything has a soul. So
go on.
When everything has a soul, who cares? At what you've just described, I could just start listing things in here that because I'm experiencing them and could talk about them exterior, my air filter, my light stands, my whatever that thing across the way is, my camera, my monitors, my mugs. We can go now downstairs and indirectly talk about all of them, and we'll be talking about the exterior essence of them without theirs, and it doesn't matter at all because, in other words, just identifying the memories of things. Everything now has a soul, and rocks are atheists. That's not for the rocks are atheists thing isn't for you, Matt. It's to piss off people because I refuse to join the argument people try to do all the time, and my genuine response to are rocks atheists is who the fuck cares?
Right.
How does this argument matter at all? Sure. Do you want them to be? Okay. Do you not? Then they're not. I don't give a fuck. I only care about if I'm an atheist, if you're an atheist, and why. Like fucking.
I had a facetious conversation with some friends on the stream once, and we ended up getting to a concept of the sentient omni parking lot, which is a whole other branch of lore that we do not have time for this, but I'm sure we'll talk about this after the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can go in a whole lot of weird directions with this, and purely having something that is conceptual that now we're trying to spread into other areas is, I don't know if it's helpful for anything.
Yeah. And, if you accept a definition that anything which lacks a belief in God is an atheist, then sure. But I don't think anybody, I don't know. That's always just been a stupid argument to me where I'm like, I think everybody understands the implicit idea that anyone would have to be capable of believing or not believing in a God. But I don't care. Because again, it's literally, how could this possibly matter? There is the rays of Christian fascism. By the way, this time I can confirm Matt's call did actually drop, and I think you can see it on yours too. Okay.
Yep.
But what? This matters. If a rock is atheist, does it make me less atheist? No. Does it make me more atheist? No. Who the fuck cares? And why are you I understand we waste time on a lot of things. I play video games sometimes. I'm not super into gaming, but of course I'm not against wasting time. But it's like when people are wasting time in the face of important stuff, relevant to it, like when you get a group of queers together to do some activism together, and then everybody wants to instead talk about whether or not something RuPaul did is offensive, and I'm like, oh, we solved homophobia and transphobia because this is all we're left to argue about? Excellent. And that's what it sort of feels like with the rocks or atheists. How can this matter? How can it matter? Also, I don't know if is RuPaul considered a good person or a bad person by the Twitter powers that be these days. I don't fucking know. I just went with an example of somebody I'm sure I've seen attempted to be canceled at some point. Anyway, so if everything has a soul, nothing does. And in that scenario, everything had a soul. My atheism's still intact. Look. We want, in the future, more theist callers. This was also did we have a single not he, him caller? Which is weird for a show I'm on. It's usually,
no.
Because my audience skews more she, her, there's usually more she, her callers, even from fellow atheists. Yeah. This was he, him's everyone. Mm-hmm. And we are extremely, what's the word, misogynist, but the other one that they use for the incels use, the
misandrous.
Yeah, we are misandrous here and think that men are terrible and never want another call from them. So next time, no, I'm just kidding. Would love to see more variety. Would love to see more religious callers and stuff. If you have an idea of where these shows should be posted, where they should be linked, it really helps more if people link themselves. So say you're like, oh, you know what? I want to put it in this subreddit. I'll tell Jimmy that's a good subreddit to put it. If I put it in there and it's obvious that it's identifiable from the Lines account or Jimmy Snow's account, they delete it as self-promotion. But if you genuinely want to start a conversation in a place like a subreddit, a Twitter, whatever, but a Facebook group, those are usually allowed. So I'm just saying, we would love to have more confrontation because that's where I shine, I feel.
Oh, it's way more fun.
It's also more fun. Yeah. So let's get those calls. Oh, I've still got Matt's thing on the, and remember, this is the Sunday show. Don't call us if you're a he/him. No, that's a joke. Everybody, calm the fuck down. Ben, it was so awesome having you here. I hope that you had. Keep hitting the wrong one. I hope that you had a good time.
It was a great time.
Do you feel I compulsorily talked over you like the whole show? I do.
Am I allowed to say yes? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if you never want to come back. I'll tell you what, sometimes people before a show will tell me like, I'm worried that I'm not going to have anything to say. And I'm like, don't worry about that, because even if you don't, if you'll just laugh at my jokes, you'll have done enough for me. There are those guest hosts who have something great to contribute, as you were, and there are those guest hosts who just make the energy and environment better, which you also were, but more the first one.
And as a counter to your comment earlier about being the only 10 in the room, it's true, because I'm actually a 12.
You're a 12. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm the only 10 I see is just anybody who actually knows how I feel about myself, my appearance, my self-esteem, would have just been like, oh, that's a joke he just made. That's clearly a joke he just made, because Jimmy won't. It's like my calves are good and my beard is good. And those are the only things that I'm confident in. I have weird calves. I don't know if you've gotten a peek, but my friends talk about this all the time, where they're like, your legs look like a bodybuilder, but then from the waist up, you look like you enjoy food the way we know you do. And I do. I try to limit the angles and stuff, and sort of, leather jacket looks good on a big old boy like me. But yeah, I have these weirdly ripped calves. I put no effort into it. This isn't me trying to be like, zero effort. It just, part of it's because I'm supporting a top heavy frame. But I put zero weight on my legs. I put zero weight on my arms. It all goes to the torso. I'm barrel-like in a bad way, is what I'm saying. Tell people where they can find you, Ben.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel, Student Dr. Ben. Go watch Medical Myths, Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I also have a Twitch where I have trivia nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays, and we just hang out and have a good time. I heard my trivia is mean, so if y'all want to find out,
is it topic-based trivia?
No, it's random, but it's multiple choice. So in the fact that it's multiple choice, I make the questions very difficult, and I've been told that it's mean.
Do you have them on your phone, or do you have access to them quickly?
Not right here. But what I do is the questions themselves, they're okay, but then my answer choices are fucked up. They are very difficult answer choices. I'll ask I can't even think. Just this is not the type of question I would ask, but let's say the top 4 most popular things ordered on Amazon during a certain time frame, some kind of question, and then all of the answer choices would be the top 4. So it was if I asked for the top 1 and I gave you the top 4, you'd have to tell me which one was the top 1.
So you just make it unnecessarily hard.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Boy, sounds great. I'm on my way. I'm just kidding. No, it does sound good.
Join us. It's a great time.
Boy, let me just go there so I can feel stupid. I always feel stupid. That's a weird thing to say. Boy, there's stuff going on in the chat. Let's just leave. This was great. It was great to see all of you. I'm glad you're here. People came to a show I was on. I've mentioned many times that I'm the least popular host of On the Line, but here I am with one of the high demand. So we sort of balanced it out. Imagine the thousands of people who would have watched if I just let you go on alone. But instead, I showed up and pulled it down to... That'd be laugh. Someone's asked what kind of doctor you're going to be. Do you want to answer?
I am applying for family medicine, but if for some reason I don't match, because there are some people who don't match into whatever specialty they apply for, we'll see what happens. I might scramble into something else, but my heart's set on family medicine, so hopefully that will happen.
Everyone in the live chat, if I could ask you a favor, thank the mods and thank the call screener for tonight. Just tell them thank you and wonderful, and then click the like button, because I feel this show helps people. I feel the conversations we have help people. I feel some people will get a chuckle out of me hanging up on the person complaining that I was talking compulsorily. It's a hard word for me. Like Trump with the word yesterday. That's a tough word. I can't say it. Can't do it. Compulsorily. I said it better as Trump just now. Did you hear that?
Did, yeah.
That's fucked up. Thank them and then click like so we can help spread. I was going to say monkeypox. That's a fucked up joke. That's the timing is bad.
Spread the community hole.
Help us spread amongst the community and fill our community hole. Hit that like button for the community hole. Thank you all for watching. What a treat this was for all of us. Bye. I kind of like the song.